In Nashville, there's a place that's more than just a stage. It's a sanctuary, a proving ground, and for the people who sing the stories of our lives, it's the ultimate home. The Grand Ole Opry is its name, and for nearly a century, its legacy has been built by the titans of country music. It's a story written in the scuffs on a 6-foot circle of wood, transplanted from the Ryman Auditorium, the mother church of country music. That's the circle where artists like Hank Williams, Patsy Cline, Johnny Cash, and Dolly Parton stood and poured their souls out to the world. Becoming a member of the Grand Ole Opry isn't just an award, it's an anointing. It's a declaration that your voice is now part of the permanent, unbreakable family of country music. It's still one of country music's highest honors. For one man, a man known by his peers as the singer's singer, that declaration was a long time coming. His name is Gene Watson, and his voice, a flawless instrument of heartache and truth, has been a gold standard in traditional country music for over 60 years. He's the singer that other singers literally gather to watch from the wings, a master craftsman whose tone and control are the envy of the industry. Yet for decades, as younger, more contemporary artists got their invitations, Gene Watson, the traditionalist, remained a guest. A respected visitor, sure, but a visitor nonetheless. He had all but given up hope of ever being asked to officially join the family. After 5 decades in country music, you'd think Gene Watson has seen it all. With dozens of charted hits, including over 20 top 10s and 5 #1 singles, sold-out shows across the globe, and the unwavering respect of every artist who ever shared a stage with him, you'd think there were no more mountains to climb. But one moment, long after the chart-topping hits and the gold records unfolded on the hallowed stage of the Opry and brought the then 76-year-old legend to his knees. What really went through his mind the night he was finally unexpectedly welcomed into the Grand Ole Opry? What were the true feelings of a man who had waited a lifetime for that door to open? For the first time, Gene Watson opens up about the humbling, overwhelming experience, and what he reveals gives a rare and profound look into the heart of a country music icon. It's a story of patience, quiet dignity, and a promise finally fulfilled. To really get why that single moment meant so much to Gene Watson, you have to understand the weight of the Opry itself. The Grand Ole Opry isn't just a popular show. It's a living, breathing pillar of American music history. It began on a cold November night in 1925, not as some grand production, but as a simple radio broadcast called the WSM Barn Dance. Its first performer was a 77-year-old fiddler named Uncle Jimmy Thompson, his raw, honest music crackling over the airwaves from a small studio in downtown Nashville. It was real, it was authentic, and America was listening. A couple of years later, after a broadcast of classical grand opera, announcer George D. Hay famously declared, "For the past hour, we have been listening to music taken largely from the Grand Opera, but from now on we will present the Grand Ole Opry." The name stuck and an icon was born. It quickly became the show that made country music famous, its signal reaching nearly 30 states and turning Nashville into the undisputed capital of country music. To stand on the Opry stage is to stand in that unbroken circle of history. It's feeling the ghosts of every legend who came before you. It's a commitment to carry the torch of tradition forward, to be a steward of the stories and sounds that define the genre. Membership is the highest honor, a sacred trust bestowed upon only a select few, just over 230 acts in its nearly 100-year history. It signifies that you're not just a star, but a standard bearer. And in the world of country music, few voices have ever been more of a standard than Gene Watson's. Born in Palestine, Texas in 1943, Watson's voice seems pulled directly from the soil of classic country. He's not a songwriter by trade. He's an interpreter of the highest order. His gift is his ability to take a lyric and inhabit it, to turn a simple song into a 3-act play of human emotion. His peers call him the singer's singer because they recognize in him a purity of talent that is both rare and revered. When Gene Watson sings, there's no artifice, no pretense, only the unvarnished truth of the story. His voice is a finely tuned instrument, capable of expressing the deepest sorrow and the most profound love with breathtaking clarity. He still sings his hits in the same key he did 3 decades ago, a testament to his incredible natural gift and discipline. For years, the Grand Ole Opry's vice president and executive producer, Dan Rogers, saw this firsthand. When Gene Watson steps onto the Opry stage, Rogers noted, fans know they are going to hear one of the most respected traditional country singers of all time. For years, we've watched him wow audiences in the crowd and fellow artists backstage. This reverence from his peers and his unwavering commitment to the traditional sound made the question of his membership a recurring topic among loyal country fans for years. It was often called one of the most glaring oversights in country music. Gene himself, ever humble, had made his peace with it. He was just grateful they kept inviting him back as a guest. Thankfully for me, they kept the door open any time I was coming through, Watson said. I guess if I were being honest, I could say I already gave up on being a member. It meant a lot to come here and perform anyway. But fate and a fellow legend had a different plan. Gene Watson's path to that fateful night at the Opry wasn't a sprint. It was a marathon. It was a 60-year odyssey of hard work, quiet persistence, and an unshakable devotion to his craft. His story doesn't begin under the bright lights of Nashville, but in the dusty working-class landscape of East Texas during the 1940s and 50s. Born one of 7 children, his family moved constantly, following his father's logging and crop-picking work. Life was defined by hard labor, not by dreams of stardom. For a while, home wasn't even a house, but a converted school bus his father had customized, with a stove strapped to the outside. He's recalled that even though they didn't have money for extravagant gifts, he never felt poor, because the families around them had nothing more. It was a happy, close-knit upbringing steeped in the values of work and family. Singing was just a part of life, as natural as breathing. I can remember singing as far back as I can remember talking, Watson has said. It wasn't unique. My whole family sang. His father, a blues harmonica and guitar player, would jam with African-American field laborers, exposing a young Gene to the soulful sounds of artists like Jimmy Reed, which he absorbed right alongside the honky-tonk of Lefty Frizzle. But music was never the plan. Watson's real passion was cars. I dreamed more about cars than music, he admitted. I used to draw pictures of cars when I was at school. He started working in a junkyard when he was just 12, getting off the school bus to go pull hubcaps and bumpers. He dropped out of school in the 9th grade to work full-time. By his late teens, he was working in an auto body repair shop by day to support his own young family, a trade he would never entirely abandon. Singing was what he did at night, performing in the rough-and-tumble honky-tonks and clubs of Houston. Music was just a sideline, he stated. I was going to be playing and singing no matter what line of work I was going to do. I never did really have any high expectations out of the music business. In his own words, I never did go looking for music. Music found me, and find him it did. One night, while singing in a Houston club, he was discovered by the Wilburn brothers, a popular duo and established members of the Grand Ole Opry. In 1964, they brought the 21-year-old Watson to Nashville for the very first time and gave him his debut on the Grand Ole Opry stage at the historic Ryman Auditorium. He sang the Hank Williams classic, I Can't Help It If I'm Still in Love with You, and got a standing ovation. Not knowing what to do for an encore, he simply sang a gospel standard, It Is No Secret. It was his first taste of the big time, a fleeting glimpse of a world he never thought he'd be a part of. But the stint came to an end, and he returned. To Texas, to his family, his auto body work, and the local club circuit. For the next decade, Watson paid his dues. He recorded singles for small regional labels, building a loyal following in Texas. He put out his first record, a song he wrote called If It Was That Easy, on an independent label in 1962. He remembers the simple thrill. It was just exciting to see my name on a record release and to believe that I was really in the business. But national success was still out of reach. He was a family man with a day job, juggling real life with his passion. Then came 1974. A small label recording he'd made, a sultry waltz called Love in the Hot Afternoon, caught the attention of Capitol Records in Nashville. The song had been recorded by others, but the lyrics were considered so risque for the time that they were always toned down. Watson made a bold call. He told his producer he wanted to record the song exactly as it was written. "Let's just go for it," he said. "And if it gets played, okay. And if it don't, we haven't lost that much." Capitol Records picked up his version and released it nationally in 1975. The gamble paid off spectacularly. The song shot to number 3 on the Billboard charts, and at long last, Gene Watson had arrived. This breakthrough kicked off the most successful period of his career. For the rest of the 70s and into the early 80s, Gene Watson was a fixture on country radio. He followed up with a string of hits that are now country standards: the heartbreaking story song Paper Rosie, the cheatin' anthem Should I Come Home or Should I Go Crazy, and his first #1 hit, the exquisitely crafted 14 Karat Mind. But it was a song released in 1979 that would come to define him. Farewell Party wasn't just a hit. It was a vocal tour de force. An epic ballad of a final gut-wrenching goodbye. It features a famously difficult last note that few singers would dare attempt. Watson didn't just attempt it, he owned it. The song became his signature, the undisputed climax of his live shows, and the namesake for his Farewell Party band. The songwriter, Lawton Williams, was so moved by Watson's performance that he gave him the BMI award he won for it. The song became a character in Watson's story, a constant companion that would, 4 decades later, play an unbelievable role in the most important night of his career. Even with his success, Watson stayed grounded. He continued to live in the Houston area, flying to Nashville to record. He quit drinking in 1980 and smoking soon after. He faced down a battle with colon cancer in the early 2000s and survived. Through the changing tides of country music, as the sound moved towards pop in the 80s and 90s, he remained defiantly traditional. He knew what his fans wanted. "There's a tremendous number of people around the world who continue to come out to hear some fiddle and steel and songs about heartbreak and real life," he said. While he may not have always been in the mainstream spotlight, his credibility never wavered. His dedication to real country music made him a hero to traditionalists and a legend among his peers. He had the hits, he had the respect, he had the voice. The only thing he didn't have was a permanent home at the Grand Ole Opry, January 17th, 2020. The lights were low at the Ryman Auditorium, the mother church, where the Opry was holding its winter run. For Gene Watson, it was another night on a stage he knew well, a stage he first stood on 55 years prior as a wide-eyed 21-year-old. Now at 76, he was the seasoned veteran, a welcome and respected guest. He finished performing his classic, "Nothing." "Sure looked good on you," the applause from the sold-out crowd washing over him. And then, something unexpected happened. From the side of the stage, another country music icon emerged: Vince Gill. A beloved Opry member himself, Gill is known for his generosity and his deep reverence for the genre's history. He walked over to a clearly surprised Watson. Gill began by telling the audience, "He's one of the greatest country singers that's walked the earth." The crowd roared in agreement. Then, looking at Watson with a friendly smile that hid just how big the next few seconds would be, he told a little white lie, claiming he had a bit of a cold and wasn't feeling up to singing his remaining songs. Then, he made a proposition, a moment that would be etched into Opry lore. "I'll make you a deal," Gill said, his voice warm. "If you'll do Farewell Party, we would invite you to be the next member of the Grand Ole Opry." For a moment, there was stunned silence from the stage. The weight of those words, the 55-year journey from his first appearance on that very stage to this unbelievable offer, seemed to hit Gene Watson all at once. The audience erupted, rising to their feet in a wave of thunderous applause that filled every corner of the historic auditorium. The glaring oversight was being corrected right before their eyes. Watson, a man whose entire life was built around his voice, was rendered nearly speechless. He looked out at the crowd, then back at Vince Gill, his eyes welling with emotion. He managed to lean into the microphone and say, his voice thick with shock and gratitude, "I'm not sure I have anything left after that kind of surprise." Somehow he gathered himself. He had to sing Farewell Party. It was the deal. As his band launched into the iconic opening notes, a new layer of meaning settled over the familiar song. This wasn't just a performance anymore. It was a coronation. This was the song that had defined his career, the song that showcased the incredible power of his voice, and now it was the song that was bringing him home. He later confessed he could barely stand after the surprise and wasn't even sure if he hit the notes right. But the crowd heard something more than just a perfect performance. They heard the sound of a lifetime of dedication being rewarded. They heard the sound of a legend finally getting his due. When he sang that final soaring note, the Ryman Auditorium didn't just applaud, it celebrated. It was a standing ovation, not just for the song but for the man, his journey, and for a promise at long last fulfilled. Reflecting on that night, Watson shared, "When Vince Gill surprised me with the news, I was so shocked I don't know how I was able to sing. That shock was the culmination of a career spent wondering if this moment would ever come. The invitation was a shockwave of emotion, but the true fulfillment, the moment it all became real, was set for 3 weeks later. On Friday, February 7th, 2020, Gene Watson returned to the Grand Ole Opry House, not as a guest, but as the man of the hour. The atmosphere was electric. This was the night he would officially become a member of the family. The honor of inducting him was given to another respected Opry member and master musician, Steve Werner. With Vince Gill away on tour, Werner stepped in, and his words captured the feeling of the entire Nashville community. Speaking to the audience, Werner said, "I remember my induction night as humbling and overwhelming, but tonight it's about Gene, who is a great ambassador for country music and one of the best interpreters of a country song that ever lived." Then, the legendary Opry announcer Eddie Stubbs, in his booming, reverent voice, introduced Watson as one of the most respected voices in country music history. As Watson walked to the center of the stage, into that sacred circle of wood, the gravity of the moment was palpable. He stood before the microphone, the Opry member trophy waiting for him, and for a moment, he just took it all in. This was it, the culmination of decades of honky-tonks, of greasy hands from the auto shop, of cross-country tours, of #1 hits and years of being on the outside looking in. Finally, he spoke. But the man with the golden voice, the man who could paint pictures with a melody, found himself at a loss for words. "It's hard to find the words to say," he confessed, his voice filled with a raw, genuine humility. "So I guess better than talking, I ought to sing." Before he sang, he made a solemn vow to everyone listening. "So many people contributed to this wonderful night, and I make a promise to everyone to keep up the tradition of country music." And then he sang. He didn't just perform, he testified. He opened with "Got No Reason Now for Goin' Home," a song whose title now carried a beautiful, poignant irony. He was home. He followed it with 14 Karat Mind, his blockbuster #1 hit, a reminder of the star power that had defined his peak. After those songs, Steve Werner formally presented him with the Opry Member Award, as Watson held it in the air triumphantly for the crowd to see. It was a picture of pure, unadulterated joy and vindication. But he had one more song to sing. He closed his set, fittingly, with Farewell Party. This time, it wasn't a song of heartbreak. It was a victory lap. It was a triumphant roar from a lion of country music, now and forever a member of the Pride. He earned another massive standing ovation, a final seal of approval from the audience he had served for so long. In the days that followed, as he had time to process it all, Gene Watson truly began to open up about what it meant. He didn't focus on what took so long, but instead, with the characteristic grace of a man like Minnie Pearl, he was simply so proud to be here. Being invited to be a member of the Grand Ole Opry is the highlight of my music career, he shared. He spoke of his childhood, sitting by the radio with his family, listening to the Opry broadcasts, never dreaming he would one day be on that stage, let alone a member. He confessed that the feeling was so surreal, it felt like a dream he was, waiting to wake up from. To him, the Opry represented the absolute pinnacle of country music, and he gave immense credit to his fans, who had tirelessly sent in petitions over the years, never giving up on the cause. I'm so thankful to my fans out there who kept on sending in petitions and had enough faith in me to keep coming to the shows, he said. His induction felt like their victory as much as his own. The long wait, the years of seeing others inducted, it all melted away, replaced by an overwhelming sense of gratitude and belonging. The singer's singer was finally home. Gene Watson's induction into the Grand Ole Opry was more than a personal milestone. It was a victory for traditional country music itself. In a time when the lines of the genre were blurring with pop, bringing a stalwart traditionalist like Watson into the fold was a powerful statement. It addressed a worry felt by many longtime fans, the fear that the classic sounds of fiddle and steel and the profound storytelling of real-life heartache were being forgotten. Watson's membership was a reassurance that the Opry, the genre's most important gatekeeper, still cherished its roots. His promise on his induction night, to keep up the tradition of country music, was a vow he'd already been living for 60 years. His life since joining the Opry family has been a beautiful testament to that belonging. He has celebrated his induction anniversary on the Opry stage, sometimes joined by the very man who invited him,